Okay, so for this one, basically what we're going to end up doing when we go to do these problems is we're going to get something squared on one side of the equation and then a number on this side. We're going to take the square root of both sides, and then we're going to get x equals plus or minus whatever that number is. Okay? Does that make sense? Or the square root of that number. All right, so basically we're going to solve for x squared and then see if we can take the square root of both sides. So on this one, it says, what are the solutions to this equation? Well, first of all, it's quadratic, so it's a second degree polynomial, so there should be two solutions. So the degree of the polynomial tells you how many solutions. Two solutions because it's a second degree polynomial. Okay? Because x is raised to the second power. All right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. That leaves me with 16x squared is equal to, what's 25 minus 9? Do you guys know off the top of your head? Use your fingers and toes if you have to. It hurts my brain. Let's do it. So I'm gonna say 25 minus 9. It's 16, by the way. So this whole thing is kind of rigged up. Now, why did Mr. Adams plug that in the calculator? Well, look, let's be honest. Maybe you don't know off the top of your head. Well, we spent all this money on these calculators. You might as well use it, get the right answer, especially when you take the SAT. So is x squared by itself yet? That is not a rhetorical question. Alan, is x squared by itself yet? Well, is it? No, it's not. So what do? I've got a 16 in front of it. What does that 16 in front of it mean? That means I'm multiplying x squared by 16. How do I move the 16? What's the opposite of multiplying by 16? Divide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 16. Okay? This 16 divided by 16 is 1. 1 times x squared is just x squared. What's 16 divided by 16? 1. So now I'm doing this stuff right here, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take the square root of this side and the square root of this side. But when I do that, remember I have to not only remember what we call the principal root, but there's a negative root too. So when you take the square root, in other words, I got to think of a number that when I multiply it by itself, it equals 1. So 1 times 1 equals 1. In other words, 1 squared equals 1. But negative 1 times negative 1 also equals 1. So negative 1 squared, negative 1 squared also equals 1. So whenever you take the square root of something, there's always the positive and negative solution. What's the square root of 1? 1. X equals positive 1. Or x equals negative 1. That's the answer. Or answers. Now, those are my two solutions too, by the way. Does that make sense? How could I verify that? I could graph it in my graphing calculator. We won't